Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us here today. My name is Liza Schwartzwald. I am the Director of Economic Justice and Family Empowerment at the New York Immigration Coalition. Now, we know that New Yorkers have struggled to make ends meet all across the state. Families work incredibly hard, families just like the ones that we have up here with us today, to support their families, to pay their bills, and to thrive all across New York. Now, we have parents who work 2 jobs, 3 jobs, some even 4 jobs, attempting to support their families, and they're still not able to get their budgets to add up. Now, we know, everybody here knows, that the Working Families Tax Credit would go a long way to making a real difference for these families. But our tax system can be complicated to explain. There are credits, they can be refundable, they can be non-refundable, there are exemptions, things change based on where you are and what your life situation is, and we know that that can be tough. So with the launch of our calculator today, we are gonna be here to make things simple for our families. Families are gonna be able to put their information into this calculator, just 4 easy pieces of information, totally anonymously, no names attached, and they will be able to see what they are going to get from the Working Families Tax Credit when we win. Right now, they'll be able to compare the current credits that they're getting, the Empire State Child Credit, the Earned Income Tax Credit, and the dependent exemption. They're gonna be able to see that number, and then right next to it, they're gonna see what they're gonna get from the Working Families Tax Credit. So we are really, really thrilled to introduce this tool today. It's going to be on many of our websites, the NYIC's, Children's Agenda, of course, the senators. You're gonna get a chance to take a look at this awesome tool today. And without further ado, I am going to introduce to you the senator who, of course, has started this bill and has been fighting for it with us and by our side, Senator Andrew Gounardes.
All right, thank you, Liza. Hi. Hi, Olivia. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm State Senator Andrew Gounardes from Brooklyn, the lead Senate sponsor of the Working Families Tax Credit. And as Liza kind of introduced us to, it's no secret, no surprise that working families across New York State are struggling to get by. And we know that there are really obvious and simple policy solutions to this problem. We saw, for example, during the pandemic through the American Rescue Plan, when Congress stepped in to expand the child tax credit and make it fully refundable and paid it out monthly, it was a huge boon to families all across the country, and it allowed us to cut the child poverty rate by 50% across the entire country. But now, of course, since the expiration of that funding, we've seen all those gains basically be erased because the tax credits have not been maintained. Now, we're very hopeful and optimistic that Congress can finally get its act together and do something this year and hopefully expand the federal child tax credit. But we don't have to wait by for Congress to get its act together. We can take action right here in New York, and that's by passing the Working Families Tax Credit legislation that I authored with my colleague in the State Assembly, Assemblymember Andrew Hevesy, that would basically help us reach our child poverty reduction goals here in New York State and do what we know is going to help put money back in the pockets of working families. Now, tax policy is complicated. It's not sexy. It's not easy to follow along. But with the launch of our new calculator here today, we're making it very simple. And we're saying that tax credits are as easy as 1, 2, 3. Anyone can go on to this website that we're announcing today, put in basic information, their combined household income, how many dependents they have, and then they'll show, and their filing status, single or married, and then they'll be able to see exactly what they're getting today and what they could possibly be getting under the full enactment of the Working Families Tax Credit. And the results in every single circumstance, for every single profile of person, it's always going to be a significant help to working families, regardless of their income. And so we're incredibly excited about this launch. When it comes to things like policy up here in Albany, and especially tax policy, it can be complicated. It can be hard to get people's attention. We want to break down those barriers as much as possible and really crystallize, not just for the families and all of the communities that we represent, but for our fellow legislators up here in Albany, so this way they can see exactly how their constituents will benefit once we fully phase in the entire Working Families Tax Credit. I want to thank the entire coalition that helped us put this together. I want to thank Pete for your great work and working behind the scenes on this. I know this was not easy to do, but we are so thankful that we have this tool, that the entire public can benefit from it. And we're in the middle of budget season right now. We have, was it 7 weeks, Rachel? 7 weeks to go until our budget is due. Let's make each of those 7 weeks count by putting this calculator in front of every single community in our state, every single legislator in the legislature, to show them just how much our families will benefit, just how important this is, and let's do the right thing by working families by passing the Working Families Tax Credit. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Senator. Yeah, we're going to get this done. So next up, we actually have the man himself, Pete Nabozny from Children's Agenda, who's going to take us through a little bit of what they were thinking here. So, Pete.
All right, guys.
That's reason alone.
No kidding. So cute. Yeah, thanks so much for having me and inviting me to speak. My name is Pete Nabozny. I'm Director of Policy at the Children's Agenda. We're based in Rochester, New York, and we work on a whole range of children's policy issues. Among the most important issues we work on is child poverty. Rochester, along with Syracuse and Buffalo and several other smaller cities in New York, we share a distinction of having some of the highest child poverty rates in the entire country, always approaching 50%. And that really stifles the community as a whole. It certainly is incredibly harmful to the children who grow up with such concentrated high rates of poverty in their community. It hurts them educationally, it hurts health outcomes, it hurts all sorts of things. And it's something we need to address in New York State. I'm also an appointee to the Child Poverty Reduction Advisory Council, and I'm really hopeful that that council will put forward recommendations that include things like the Working Family Tax Credit to ensure that we do achieve our goal of cutting child poverty in half within 10 years. But this tax credit, it's incredibly helpful to families up and down the income spectrum, particularly families close to or experiencing poverty. But really all families in New York are struggling with rising costs, whether it's some of the effects of inflation, rising housing costs, just the reality of what it takes to raise children. And our state's tax code should recognize that, and we should ensure that families get the support that they need, that they get a little break, they get a little more money in their pockets so that they can make rent, make that mortgage payment, take their kids on a trip, do the things that kids need to thrive. And this legislation that Senator Gounardes has authored really helps achieve that. The calculator is just a way to break down, as everyone's been saying, tax policy is complicated, but every single New Yorker who files their taxes, in the end, they realize how much the tax code can help or hurt them when they go about filing those taxes this time of year. And so this tool is just designed with a couple of quick steps to show people what can be different, what will be different when this legislation passes, and it's just a really simple and not that hard way to move forward with this. So I'm just thrilled that we were able to pull this together, and I just really want to express the urgency that we need to do this. We need to do it this year. Families need help now, and this budget is as good a time as any to pass this legislation and ensure that this goes into effect when people are filing their taxes this time next year. Thank you.
All right, one more time for Pete, who really did so much to make this tool accessible to everyone. Thank you, Pete. All right, next up, we have one more advocate, and then we're going to hear from a bunch of parents, many of whom have actually brought their children with them today. So we are, yes, well, you know what? This is what happens when we bring our kids. Our kids are kids. So thank you so much for that. So next up, I am very pleased to introduce Tara Klein from the United Neighborhood Houses.
Hi, everybody. My name is Tara Klein. I am the Deputy Director of Policy and Advocacy for United Neighborhood Houses. We are a policy organization and association of settlement houses in New York. Many settlement houses have been in their neighborhoods for over 100 years. They run programs and services ranging from early childhood education to youth programs, senior services, case management, mental health supports, and much more. And we just released a new report along with our colleagues at Educational Alliance, one of our members, called Progress Lost, Hardships Persist for New York Families After the End of the Expanded Child Tax Credit. Now, this is a follow-up to a 2022 study we did, and each report surveyed over 1,000 people, families, who participate in settlement programs or work at a settlement house to get a sense of impact from federal tax credits on poverty. And it distills these experiences into policy recommendations for New York families, including the Working Families Tax Credit. So our first report looked at the temporarily expanded child tax credit from the federal government, the CTC. We found that when you give families flexible funding with no restrictions during a time of deep economic hardship, they spend it on food, rent, and other key essentials. And our latest report highlights the consequences of what happens when flexible funding, like the expanded federal CTC, is taken away from families. Even though indicators like lower employment and unemployment and wage growth suggest that New York's economy has recovered from the pandemic, our research shows that this is a lopsided recovery that isn't reaching all New Yorkers. So a year after the expiration of the federal CTC, we found families were living paycheck to paycheck, were struggling to meet their basic needs. Nearly 4 out of every 10 parents surveyed said they often or always ran out of cash in the last 6 months. More than half had unpaid bills or debt, and almost a quarter said they needed to take on additional employment to pay the bills. Our survey data showed that food insecurity is widespread among families. 1/3 of parents said they visited a food bank in the last 7 days. And given the high housing costs in our state, housing instability is a problem for many parents we surveyed, especially for families of color. 64% of Black parents and 58% of Latinx parents said they had difficulty paying for housing in the last month. So these are upsetting but not surprising findings. Cash assistance through tax credits help people get out of poverty. This is why we support the Working Families Tax Credit. It's evidence-based to help fight growing financial hardship, food insecurity, housing instability, and more. And it's simple. It's about putting money back into the pockets of people who need it most to lift New Yorkers up and strengthen our economy. So this new calculator tool that's being released today really just makes this economic policy more concrete for families and shows them what this could look like with our Working Families Tax Credit. So I want to thank the New York Immigration Coalition and the Children's Agenda for putting this together. I'm excited to see how it works shortly. We have so much momentum this year. We have to get it done in the budget this year. We know we have broad support in the legislature and from advocates, and our federal government is working on this. So thank you so much for your time. Let's get it done. Thank you.
Thank you, Tara, and thank you, UNH, for this wonderful report. If you haven't read it yet, you should go ahead on their website and look it up. The SHARP report gives really, really valuable information that is concrete about our New York families. Now, next up, I am very pleased to introduce Senator Rachel May, our senator from Syracuse, chair of Cities 2, and a wonderful advocate for this. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And first, I need to thank Senator Gounardes, who has been a relentless advocate for fighting child poverty in this state, and especially for child tax credits. So thank you for always bringing that to the front of the priority list. And Pete for creating a tool that I think is going to help us as legislators, and then once we pass this, help our constituents as well. So I represent the city of Syracuse, which is number 1 in my heart, but it's also number 2 on the list of cities in this country of 100,000 or more with child poverty. It is number 2 for child poverty in the country. And Buffalo and Rochester are not far behind. So child poverty is an issue all across the state, and this will lift many, many, many of my constituents out of that dire state that they're in. And the tool, I've got to say, I mean, if you're living in poverty, and many of my constituents are in extreme poverty, if you're a parent who's thinking about how to make sure your kids don't go to bed hungry, if you're also worried about eviction, potentially, if you're also trying to keep your kids safe on streets that have a lot of crime, if you have all of those pressures, the last thing you're going to do is sit down with a giant book of tax law to figure out what you qualify for. You need a simple tool that will help you get that information. And so not just passing the child tax credit, but making it accessible to families who really are struggling. That is so important, and I am thrilled that we're doing both at the same time. So I want to thank everybody who's been part of making this happen. And I want to thank all the families who are here to really raise awareness about this, because it couldn't be more important this year. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Senator. Now, this is an important point that the senator has raised, which is that this is an issue for families all across the state, in Syracuse, in Buffalo, as Pete said, in Rochester. The great thing about the Working Families Tax Credit is a credit that goes directly to families. Families benefit from it. They have control over, when they file their taxes and get this credit, they're going to get that money straight to them. It doesn't have to go through any crazy, means-tested programs. This is just a direct benefit to families. So we really hope that, we're able to move this forward. Now, next up, I have the first of our wonderful parents who are going to come and speak a little bit about what this credit would mean to them, what this looks like in their lives right now. And as I said earlier, they've all brought their children with them, because this is not just something for, your parents. This is really a benefit that is meant to go to the whole family. This is for our kids. So that's what we're looking at today. So I am very, very pleased to introduce our first parent, Claudia Valdivia.
Hola, buenos días para todos. Espero tengan un buen día. Mi nombre es Claudia Valdivia. Soy activista y miembro de la organización COF y de las Doñas Academy. He luchado por los derechos de migración, por los derechos de vivienda en Nueva York. Mi hijo está actualmente en la universidad tratando de obtener un estatus migratorio. Cuando fue la pandemia, nosotros, la comunidad inmigrante, nos vimos muy afectados porque no contábamos con un seguro médico, no contábamos con un trabajo que nos respaldara. En lo menos mi esposo es deliverista. Durante la pandemia se enfermó. Tengo 5 hijos. La renta de Nueva York cada día es más cara, muy elevada. Ya no alcanza para nada. Gracias a Dios contamos cuando fue la pandemia con el estímulo económico que nos ayudó mucho a la gente inmigrante, porque a muchos nos ayudó para pagar nuestra renta, a otros nos ayudó para pagar comida y a otros pues doctor, porque en mi caso mi esposo gracias a la pandemia se enfermó. Entonces no tuvimos un respaldo. Gracias a Dios les pido a los políticos que tienen el poder para hacer el cambio, que hagan válido el estímulo económico, que en vez de que nos corten, porque nos están cortando en todo, nos aumenten. Muchas gracias para todos y que tengan un excelente día.
I'm gonna read the translation of what she had said right now. Good morning, my name is Claudia Valdivia. I am an activist and member of COF and Las Doñas Academy. I have fought for immigrant rights and housing rights in New York City. My son is currently in university and is also in the process of obtaining his immigration status. Lately, the politicians have forgotten about us, and when the pandemic hit, we, the immigrant community, had a very difficult time because we didn't have health insurance, we didn't have a good job to back us up. My husband does delivery, and during the pandemic, he got sick. I have 5 children, and every day the rent in New York becomes more expensive. Found it very difficult for me and my family during the pandemic. Thanks to God, we had the economic relief, such as the tax credit. It was a great help for me because I was able to pay for my family's needs and also for health insurance for my husband because he got sick during the pandemic. I'm asking the politicians to support the working families tax credit so that families like mine have the support they need to get ahead. Many of us rely on tax credits, single mothers, seniors, children, and adults with special needs and their caregivers. We want our politicians to keep their promises and make real commitments. And when they win office, to not forget everything that they promised. Thank you and have a great day.
Gracias, Claudia. And thank you so much for the translation as well. It is so important to remember, right, how hard our families are actually working. Caregiving is work, right? Raising children is work. That is something that benefits all of us here in the state. And just as an example of one of the benefits of the Working Families Tax Credit, currently for some of the existing credits, if you have more than 3 children, you are not getting a credit for all of those children. So Claudia's children would not all be recognized under current credits. Under the Working Families Tax Credit, they would be. So this is fundamental and important for individual families who are struggling right now to make ends meet. Now, next up, I would like to introduce Senator Robert Jackson.
Well, thank you for having me. Buenas tardes, señoras. I say to you that Anton, my legislative director, said I had to be here because this was an issue that's going to bring money to the families that need it the most. And so he initially told me that it was over at the $1 Million Staircase. So we ran over there. That didn't deter me. He said, I made a mistake. It's over here. I said, let's go. And we were walking very fast because this is important to not only you, but to everyone who's entitled to it in New York State. Other states have it. Why should we have it? So Andrew Gounardes, my colleague in the State Senate, let me thank you for sponsoring this legislation. This is extremely important. My family would not benefit because of the income that we have. But I know that my constituents in the 31st Senatorial District, and when you look at it, the 31st Senatorial District is not the average district. It's below the average. The 30th District, where Cordell Clear, is below the average. And Gustavo Rivera in the 32nd in the Bronx is below the average. And as you know, the Bronx has the poorest congressional district in the country. So the needs are there. And so we have not politicians, but elected public officials like Andrew Gounardes and myself to be able to fight to make sure that we support the people that need it the most. And that's what this is about. So you have my full support. I've signed on to his bill, and I will be here advocating with him anytime we have to in order to ensure that this takes place. I have an intern, a special assistant from Baruch College. She's a sophomore. And so I wanted her to be with us so she can experience fully the type of work that we do. And that's extremely important. So thank you for being here, all of you. And thank you for organizing this. And Andrew Gounardes, thank you for spearheading the bill.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Senator, for running over here. It's been a busy day at the Capitol and the Legislative Building today. Another benefit of the Working Families Tax Credit that in fact does not currently exist is that very often you have a college student, usually a freshman, age 17. 17-year-old dependents are not included in the current credits. Under the Working Families Tax Credit, they are. So if you are a parent with a 17-year-old who needs to go to school, you are still supporting and helping that student, that will be included in the Working Families Tax Credit. That's right. So next up, we have our next parent, Ms. Siria Santiago.
Hola a todos, buenos días. Mi nombre es Siria Santiago. Soy miembro de Cabrini Immigrant Service. Como mamá de inmigrante, sé lo difícil que es acceder a una buena calidad de vida en Nueva York. Los precios de la renta son muy altos, los pagos de los empleos de migrantes son muy bajos, los alimentos cada día son más caros. Por eso pido y exijo a todos los políticos que apoyen al crédito tributario para familias trabajadoras para que tengamos una buena calidad de vida. Familias en Nueva York merecemos tener una vida libre y constante de preocupación. Y nosotros los inmigrantes pagamos impuestos. Durante la pandemia yo no pude acceder a un alivio económico porque era muy confuso y difícil de entender. El crédito tributario para familias ayudará a acceder a recursos que actualmente no tenemos y ayudará a familias y a mí a estar mejor. Gracias.
Hi there, my name is Amelia and I will be translating Siria's statement. Good morning, my name is Siria Santiago. I am a member of Cabrini Immigrant Services. As an immigrant mother, I know how difficult it is to access a good quality of life in New York. Rent prices are very high, immigrant job payments are low, food is more expensive every day. That is why I ask all politicians to support the Working Families Tax Credit so that we can have a good quality of life. Families in New York deserve to be able to have a life free of constant worry, and we immigrants pay taxes. During the pandemic, I was not able to access financial relief because it was very confusing and difficult to understand. The family tax credit will help access resources we currently do not have and help me and my family to be better off. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, we're going to have one more parent speak. I'm going to have my colleague Valeria join her, but I do want to remind everybody how incredibly powerful and brave it is for our parents, especially the parents who are struggling so much to support their families, to take time out of their busy and stressful lives to come here to Albany to actually advocate for the things that matter most to them and their families. So again, full credit to our families for coming out here today with us. It is both brave and we are so appreciative because this is all for them. So Valeria?
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Juliana Paz. She's also a member from COF. And this year she received the Leadership Member Award in COF. So she's doing a lot of change in her community. She's gonna be, besides all the change that she's doing in her community, she's also here trying the calculator. Julie, ¿quieres decir algunas palabras?
Solo gracias por darnos el tiempo de expresar nuestras historias y gracias también por apoyarnos a todos ustedes, por apoyar cada día a nosotros los inmigrantes.
I just want to say thank you to all of you for allowing us to express our stories, and also thank you for supporting our communities, our immigrants communities. Okay, so now Yuran is going to try the calculator. Vamos a probar la calculadora. And Pete va a ayudar.
Great, so we have 4 questions.
Tenemos 4 preguntas.
All right. So annual household income.
El ingreso de anual.
Sorry.
¿Cuánto? 10.
Okay. And then marital status. And then you file taxes using a social security number or an individual tax ID. And then number of children. There we go. So currently,
This is, yeah.
So currently, through all these combined credits, the child tax credit, the earned income tax credit, and the dependent exemption, your family receives $347 of benefits. Under this legislation, in the first year, you would receive $2,400. And when fully implemented, it would be $4,800.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
So this really crystallizes exactly how much this will help families. And that's a very big difference, $347 compared to $2,400 next year if we started implementing the Working Families Tax Credit in this coming budget cycle, which is why this is so important, because that can go to pay for school supplies, food, clothes, a trip to the museum, a trip to the aquarium, whatever families need to survive, pay the utility bill, pay their rent bill. That's going to help families stay alive and stay afloat, and that's why this is so important.
So once again, you will be able to access this tool on the Senator's website, as well as on the New York Immigration Coalition's website, on the Children's Agenda website, and on the website of many of our members and partners. So it's accessible by phone and by iPad as well. So anywhere you are, if you have your phone, you can pull it out and show families what it is that they'll be getting here. But as the Senator said, and as Pete said, this is not a small amount of difference for our families. This is a life-changing amount of money. This is not getting evicted next month. This is having groceries. This is making sure that your kid has a pencil when they go to school. These are not small things for any family. So once again, I want to thank Juliana for sharing her own family's information. Again, that was really, really useful, really brave. Thank you so much for that. I would encourage everyone to use the tool, try it out. As you can see, we've got lots of different examples. You can really put information into this tool to see how it will change lives. So let's get the Working Families Tax Credit passed. Let's show families what it is that we can do for them as New York, and let's make sure that all of our families have what they actually need, not just to make the bare minimum, but for themselves and their children to thrive. So thank you all so much for being here today. And one more time for our parents and our families. Woo-hoo!